It is Easter weekend, the weekend when we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, and we also mourn his death a few days before. We also celebrate spring, new life coming out of this winter and entering the sun and the warmth that Mother Earth provides. I've been on just such a fascinating journey. I know you've been with me for a little while. So I want to share a little bit of evolution. I'm wearing new digs. You like them? You like the color? Um, the color was inspired by my first experience with mushrooms. I was surprised because I've been wearing black the past month or so, and I was surprised that no one reached out and asked me, like, hey, Rob, why are you wearing black? You were wearing green, now you're wearing black, now you're wearing fuchsia. What's going on? And the first time I showed up wearing black, I felt a lot of insecurity. I grew up in the Catholic faith, and although my church does not fully practice all the Catholic traditions, we still kind of I honor my own Catholic upbringing. Um, and I worried that when I started wearing black, people would think that I was like stealing Catholic faith or trying to come across as I was Catholic or whatever story I told myself at the time. And I had a lot of insecurity about it. It was probably like a week or two before I actually posted myself on camera wearing black, even though I had been serving the community in black for like 2 weeks. But sharing that version of myself on camera was very difficult for me. Why was I wearing black? It's because I was mourning my mother. When I started this church, I started wearing green. That just kind of felt it felt a calling to me. It felt like green represents Mother Earth, represents my favorite colors in life. Was kind of like my ordinary times color, so to speak. Then my mom passed away, and I felt the calling to black. And now that we're here in Easter, I'm wearing fuchsia to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus and the spring. And later this summer, I'll probably change colors again. Not sure what color it'll be, but I'll change colors again, and then probably around Christmas, change colors again. And you'll probably see green mixed in between there, being ordinary times at Heartspace Church, so to speak. Let's talk about Jesus, because that's what Easter is all about. It's one of the most holy days of the year, celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, of Christ. I believe that Christians can learn a lot from psychedelics and plant medicines. And, in my head, before I started this path, I always felt like psychedelics and plant medicines were over here, hippie, spirituality, non-duality, Ram Dass, and Christianity and traditional religion was over here, and those two shall never meet. And if you probably asked me in 8th grade at St. Augustine's Elementary School, I probably would have said, oh, all those drugs are the works of the devil. um, Good old Dare back in the 1980s and 90s. But since I've been practicing, I think that Christians can learn more about Christ through plant medicine than any other means out there. I know it's difficult for people that don't practice to understand, but for a long time, I kind of rejected and pushed Christianity aside because I felt that, well, if God is universal and all these world religions are all trying to make sense of the same God, then why would I ascribe to any particular faith like Christian or Buddhist or Zen? Why not just love and serve Lord God and just build that direct relationship to him or her or it? And I still do feel it kind of that way, which is why Heartspace Church is an independent interfaith church. But when I started practicing these medicines a little less than a year ago, Christ, Jesus, kept showing up. He kept showing up all the time in many different ways. And it made me reconsider my earlier beliefs. And it made me greater appreciate my Catholic upbringing, and eventually led me to start wearing the collar, a uniform of service to you and to the community. But today I want to talk about the resurrection of Jesus, because that's what we're here to celebrate on Easter. When Jesus was persecuted, there are two really important things that happened that I want to highlight. The first is that at some point during the day or so he was on the cross dying, the story says that he said out loud to God, "Lord, why have you forsaken me? Why have you abandoned me? Why have you left me on this cross?" And that resonates with me so deeply because I think all of us have felt abandoned at some moment in our lives. I mean, if you know my story, I was adopted. I was abandoned by my mom and dad. Of course, they did it out of love, but, I would be lying if I said there weren't some moments in my life where I didn't feel like I was abandoned by them. I went through divorce. I was abandoned by my ex-wife. I've had friends die. Most recently, I had my mother die. I could easily say I felt abandoned by them. I felt abandoned by my mother. Actually, my mother I didn't, but that's a different story. But lots of people may feel that when a loved one passes away. And even day to day, I'll be looking on Instagram and I'll see a group of friends post a picture about a dinner they went on or a trip they took to Vegas. And I'm like, man, where's my invite? Why didn't you invite me? Why'd you abandon me? I think all of us have felt abandoned at some moment in our lives. And just imagine the abandonment that Jesus must have had. Here he was, dedicating his life to serving and worshiping God. And the only reason he would have said out loud, "Why have you forsaken me?" is if he wasn't holding on to something, holding on to some hope that maybe God will save him, that maybe God will lift him up from this cross and he'll ascend into heaven or something. But he, at some point, felt doubt, felt abandonment, even if it was just for a second, just long enough for him to say, "Why have you forsaken me?" And I like to think that after that, he realized that God was there all along. So that's number one. The other thing that Jesus did on the cross is right before he dies, he forgives. He forgives. "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And, just imagine how difficult that was. Here these people made him carry a 400-pound cross through the streets, put a crown of thorns on his head, mocked him, ridiculed him, drove nails through his hands and feet, put a spear through his side. How much anger and resentment would most of us have if we went through a similar experience to that? I think we would have tremendous amounts. But Jesus, maybe he did. Maybe he felt resentment for a little bit, microsecond, I don't know, maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour, I don't know. But at the last moment of his death, he forgives. And he doesn't forgive and say, they need to beg for my forgiveness or they won't get into heaven, or they need to kneel down and pray. He just forgives. He just says, forgive them. Unconditional forgiveness. You don't have to do anything to receive forgiveness. That was his final message. And I think many of us would struggle to forgive if we were in that situation. And how many of us struggle to forgive people today that hurt us? That we see things on the news. We see ICE. We see immigrants killing people. Which, completely blown out of proportion, but you get the point. Heck, The U.S. is getting ready to go to war right now over some stuff that happened over the past 40 plus years. Like, Jesus would just forgive. He would just say, you're forgiven. 40 years of whatever Hamas did to Israel, whatever is still going on in the world today, you're forgiven. That's the message that Jesus gives us on the cross. And so many of us stuck in this human condition never make it to that point. I digress. What do psychedelics have to teach us about Christianity, and particularly about resurrection? Whenever I've had a deep medicine experience, I have experienced what I can best describe as many deaths and many resurrections. And if you've never experienced it in a spiritual setting, I don't think you can truly understand and feel what Jesus' message and core teaching was. And here's how it shows up for me. When I'm doing these deep medicine journeys, there's always something that I'm holding on to very strongly, be it maybe I'm holding on, in the past, holding on to my military career, holding on to this persona of me as a executive coach, holding on to this persona or idea of me as a loving husband and father. There's always something that the medicine shows me that I'm holding on to really tight. And the more I love it, the more I hold on to it. And I think for Jesus on the cross, it was probably holding on to this idea that God was going to come down and save him and take him off that cross. Otherwise, why would he have said, why have you forsaken me? There was something he was holding on to. We all do it. And the medicine shows me that I'm holding on to something. And it forces me to let go and surrender to God's love. And that's really, really difficult to do, but I've done it, I don't know, hundreds of times now. And in the medicine space, in one evening or one day, you can do this over and over and over again, right? But it's shown me what I hold on to. It's told me surrender, let go, surrender to love, surrender to God. Let God take the wheel. Let Jesus take the wheel. Isn't that like a Dolly Parton song or something like that? And in that moment, when I surrender, it feels like I am dying. Not feels like I'm dying like, oh, I'm sick, I have the flu. No. It feels like I'm dying in the most profound and real sense of the way. Like dying that I will never see my wife and kids ever again. Dying that they're going to write my obituary tomorrow morning. And it makes me confront death. There is no doubt that I am dying when I'm in the medicine. There's lots of tears, there's lots of emotions that come up. But then, in that moment when I think this is it, when I fully surrender and say, okay, this is it, Lord, take me. In that moment, I'm resurrected. In that moment, I break through and I see what's on the other side. Sometimes I see heaven. Sometimes I experience the universal mind and universal intelligence and connected with one thing in the cosmos. Sometimes I just come back to life stronger and better than I was before. But the pattern repeats itself over and over and over again. Holding on to something, that thing you love the most, surrendering to love, entering death, and being resurrected to new life. And I've experienced these mini resurrections time and time and time again. And I think if you have never experienced it, you just don't fully understand what Jesus went through. And of course, I'm still here, right? I have not died, so I can't say I fully understand what Jesus went through, because I don't. But experiencing this cycle over and over again in the medicine connects me to Jesus in a much more deep and profound way. And this is the first Easter I've ever celebrated after practicing medicines in this fashion. And this year, for me, I'm celebrating this Easter in a way that I've never felt before. Because I'm not only celebrating Jesus' resurrection, but I'm celebrating my own resurrection. All the mini resurrections I've been through and the resurrection that's still waiting for me when I surrender to love and surrender to God every day. What's my message? I think it's clear. Surrender to love. Surrender to love, whatever that means to you. But when you surrender to love, when you surrender to God, when you let go of all that stuff you're holding on to so tightly, I think that's when you find your own resurrection. And that's the lesson that Jesus teaches us, and that's why we celebrate Easter. I love you guys. Have a great week, and we'll be seeing you around. God bless. Go in peace to love and serve.